Hi guys, Rishi Sunak will be happy. Wednesday saw the government win by a massive majority, 515 to 29. The ERG, a shadow of its former self, the anti-EU group within the Conservative Party, pretty much fell apart and were unable to convince enough Tories to mount a resistance to the vote on the Stormont Brake. And the DUP were thrown the 1690th time under a bus by the Conservatives. Here was Sammy Wilson of the DUP before the vote, trying to drum up support for his party's position. You almost feel sorry for him. Almost.
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear what we're debating here today. We're debating a lock or a brake, which is necessary because the government has allowed the EU to impose its law on part of the United Kingdom. And the result of that is that we now have a border between one part of the United Kingdom and the other part of the United Kingdom. A border which is going to be reinforced very shortly by the building of physical posts.
Actually, no, that's part of the agreement. That was part of the withdrawal agreement and the Northern Ireland Protocol. But the withdrawal agreement stipulated that border posts would have to be constructed. The UK government was dragging its feet for about 2 years over this. They were supposed to build permanent structures there in Northern Ireland to carry out checks. And the UK government were not fulfilling their side of the bargain.
Which will be used to monitor trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, where goods which are going into Northern Ireland purely for the consumption in Northern Ireland will be checked, 100% customs checks and 1 in 20 physical checks. And that can be varied, of course, by the EU. And what's the answer, the government's answer to it? Well, unionists can make a protest about it. They can sign a petition of concern. By the way, a petition of concern, which if there's anything will destabilise the Northern Ireland Assembly. It's a
What? Destabilise the Northern Ireland Assembly? This is the party that has refused to allow the executive to be formed because of the protocol. Not really about the protocol, it's about Sinn Féin, but officially it's about the protocol. So he doesn't want this break because the break will destabilise the assembly. They can't actually pull the break because there isn't an executive in operation at the moment, and he's complaining about destabilising the executive and the assembly.
The constant use of the petition of concern, and the members behind me will confirm that. So, first of all, there's a limit on what can be done. And secondly, despite what the Secretary of State has said, that he would be bound to, in fact, he would have no option to, other than listen to the petition of concern from unions. There's a whole section in this bill which tells us grounds on which he can refuse to do it. And even
I'm on the same page as Sammy Wilson here, but once again, the Tories lied to you. And you still support the Tories. The Brexiteers lied to you, and you still support Brexit. At what stage would the DUP wake up and smell the coffee and realise they're under the bus? I've said, so what he's talking about here is when the DUP, if they can, pull the brake, and it requires 30 MLAs, members of the Northern Ireland Assembly, if they're able to garner enough support, the DUP currently have 25, they will struggle to get 30, but they may actually get to 30. And then if they do, they pull the brake, and then it goes to the Northern Ireland Secretary of State. And the Northern Ireland Secretary of State will decide whether it's legitimate or not. Is this on reasonable grounds? Is it just the DUP throwing a tantrum, as they normally do? Because if it is legitimate, then it goes on to the, well, let's hear what Sammy Wilson had to say about what the next stage is.
Even if he does accept it, he then has to go to the Joint Committee and he has to exercise a veto which he knows will lead to material impacts for the United Kingdom.
See, what the DUP want is for the UK government to issue the veto, to start a trade war with the EU over an issue that the DUP have in Northern Ireland. So the DUP would like the UK government to throw British businesses under a bus because the DUP aren't happy over, I don't know, flower pots or sausages. That's what Sammy Wilson wants. He wants a trade war between Great Britain and the EU because of some issue that the DUP have.
And that we can be absolutely sure. If it's a choice between disrupting relations with the EU, ironically, this Windsor Framework is presented on the basis that it's to normalise relations with the EU. If that's the case, how likely is it that we're going to pick a fight with them over the implementation of some EU law in Northern Ireland? The truth is, this is not a Stormont Brake, it's a Stormont fake.
It's not a Stormont Brake, it's a Stormont fake. You've been had, Sammy. You've been had by the Brexiteers and the Tories. They told you that they would do everything to keep you happy. And you've been had once again. As I said, at what stage are the DUP going to wake up and realise that the Brexiteers don't give a crap about them? The Tories don't give a crap about them. The Stormont Brake, and Sammy Wilson is correct here, the Stormont Brake is not really going to stop EU legislation being implemented in Northern Ireland. It's possible, but it would result in British businesses suffering in a trade war. And the UK government isn't going to do that. So the DUP can try and pull the handbrake, as the Stormont Brake or the handbrake, as often as possible, but there is a safety measure. It's the Northern Ireland Secretary of State. And the current one is not really interested, even though he's, is he still the chair of the ERG, or he was the chair of the ERG? Chris Heaton-Harris, he's not interested in playing these stupid games. As I said, you almost feel sorry for the DUP. They keep digging, the Brexiteers hand them a shovel, and they never stop. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.